Okay, hello everyone. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to Lakeview's
Hello.
Alumni Panel Workshop at Bridges of Lakeview Health, our new educational series that connects addiction and recovery education professionals. I'll go ahead and introduce our presenters to you today. From Lakeview Health, we have Lexi Lehan, the Aftercare and Alumni Supervisor, and Tony Sartini, the Alumni Coordinator. With Rico, we have Matt Martin, the Alumni Director.
Hi, everyone.
And Chris Pasquale, the Director of Operations. Lexi, why don't you start by telling everyone what Lakeview Health is doing to help alumni and others in recovery during this crazy time?
Sure. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. We kind of just wanted to get together and share with the rest of the community, what we're doing, what Rico's doing, and probably a lot of other treatment centers are doing right now to continue to support the alumni, network that we all have, and our alumni out there. And in this COVID world that we're living in, most things have gone virtual since we are, social distancing and, living in this kind of isolation, which is the complete opposite of what we teach our patients and our alumni to do. So Lakeview, we have started doing 2 virtual meetings a day, Monday through Friday. So it's myself and some of our alumni coordinators and then some of our other team members from different departments that are in recovery themselves are leading these meetings and, just trying to be there for our alumni. And it's an open meeting, so anyone that's in recovery can join those too. And so that's kind of what we've been doing during this time.
Perfect. Matt, do you want to explain a little bit about what Rico is doing for their alumni?
Yeah. So what Rico has done is we've tried to do a few different things. One of the first things we rolled out was a high-level Facebook awareness about what's going on and keeping contact with people with posts and messaging. The other piece is that, just the constant contact on the phone via text messages. We also use a texting platform that we can send out texts to explain what is happening and how to communicate with us. 2 other things that we've done is we are still holding our Thursday night alumni virtually. We do a 5:30 group that's open to alumni and clients, and it's based on relapse prevention and talking about feelings and thoughts and taking action. Later in the evening, we hold an alumni AA type meeting. Again, that's open to the alumni and also current clients and any family or friends that need to attend a meeting. On Sundays, Chris and I have been continuing the Seekers. It's a church function that we do. We typically bring our clients in and we read something and we eat dinner and spend an hour together. Obviously, we've not been able to do that. So Chris has been recording YouTube messages and we've been sending that out on all of those platforms. And we've also been doing to-go food. So we're inviting people in to do a drive-through takeout and taking food with them and sending like prayer requests or anything in the bag with them to keep in touch. That's about it.
So we have some questions that have come through the portal, and during this time, please feel free to ask any additional questions using the Q&A feature on the side of the screen. But let's go ahead and start with some of the questions. Lexi, can you explain why it's so crucial to be supporting alumni during this time?
Sure. So like I kind of said before, a big thing that we teach our patients while they're in Lakeview, and really something that's just taught in recovery in general, is to build a network, to make friends with other sober people, maybe to get new friends, to hang out, before and after meetings, to go to meetings, and all that stuff has kind of been put on hold through this pandemic. And So it's leaving a lot of people not knowing what to do with their free time. And, that's a dangerous place to be for someone early in recovery. I know for me personally, I would have struggled a lot if I didn't have, those meetings to go to, those alumni functions to go to, just to be able to sit outside of a restaurant and hang out with people, after a meeting. That was huge for me. So it's so important for, alumni departments to come together and to figure out, okay, what can we do to still continue to support these people because they're in such, a dangerous place to be, so newly sober and not really having all the tools that we're used to sharing with them. So being able to be there for them virtually, or through text message or through email or through a phone call, whatever, is so important and crucial right now.
Matt, I can imagine people may not be as receptive to getting on an online support group. So how do you approach getting your alumni to initially log on?
I think that hasn't been our experience, and I believe it's because the culture we instill from day one, and always having the approach that we love our clients, we're here for them, and we consider a lot of the alumni as people that may have not successfully completed our program. So we let them know from day one that you're part of Rico no matter where you finish in the process. And it's just having that open and welcoming, you are part of Rico, we care about your recovery, and we want you to be successful. I think, the alumni does that really well to facilitate that and build that, but I think it's our clinical team that builds that culture with their one-on-ones with the clients to make them feel welcome, and that the alumni is constantly here for them. And that is why so many of our events and our groups, like on Thursday, we mix our alumni with current clients. And the buddy system we also assign our clients when they come in with alumni is very crucial to get those people together and to begin to forge those relationships. And so, and for the ones that are reluctant to join, you do have those. The other alumni communicate with each other, and me and the therapist and Chris, and they let us know who's struggling if we don't get it from a text or a phone call. So it's my job to make sure that we're reaching out to them to ease them in and let them know they don't have to say anything and that they're safe, and that we're here to support them. And we held a call. We had an alumni call last night, and final head count for that AA style meeting was 39 people. And what's great is I have people on there that have 2 and 3 years that have relocated back home across the country, and to see these people join the alumni virtually who would be missed if this wasn't happening has really opened our eyes to some other opportunities for our alumni.
Tony, do you feel like alumni are actually feeling supported through a virtual recovery world?
First of all, I want to say I'm glad to be here and glad to be on this. The short answer is yes, absolutely. One of the things that I've noticed and I've heard the feedback on is that, just in general rule is during this time that we're going through that everybody is, feeling lonely, and there's some isolation for anybody, not anybody in recovery also, and non-recovery. So, to any way we could support anyone who's feeling isolated or feeling lonely, I'm definitely hearing back that we're doing, making great strides in helping people not feel so alone and not so isolated. One great thing about working with the alumni is that in the beginning, when before they can go on and maybe get involved in their 12-step groups, and we kind of bridge the gap between that, so they can feel comfortable because they're comfortable with all the alumni, the people that they were in the treatment with. They have some really good connections, really good friends. And so it makes it easy for them to go right into a virtual meeting as soon as they get out, because it's with people that they've already been with for a long period of time. Makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel comfortable with sharing, or maybe comfortable with just the whole logging on and all of that. they've got a handle on that and they feel comfortable, now they can go on into the Zoom meetings and the virtual meetings out there, and the 12-step programs. But I do believe that the support we give and we bridge the gap between, for long-term recovery, it takes we're going to go back to normal here, in a short period of time. And so they feel great support with this now. They feel it works. So now that they're very easy to go on and do the next thing. Because, it's the connection is what recovery is about. And, the isolation is our addiction. So we want to make sure that we stay connected. And I do get a lot of feedback that says that thank goodness we've bumped our meetings up to 2 a day versus, 2 a month. And just to have that constant knowing that, geez, it's like, it's 11:30. I'm going to log on at 12 o'clock. I'm going to see some of the alumni. Or, I've had a bad day. So I'm going to get on at 7 o'clock now. And to have double opportunity to see friends during this time has been very rewarding, and it's necessary. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
Perfect. We have a question from Jordan. They want to know, can you talk about some things that you're doing, maybe an event or something like that, outside of just a virtual check-in, keep alumni engaged?
So I think, since one of the biggest things that we're missing are those meetings and those 12-step meetings and all that stuff, that's really the biggest thing we're doing are those virtual meetings and we run them. They're not 12-step meeting. We don't want to break any traditions, but we run them kind of like an open discussion where we bring up a topic and let people share. And like I said earlier, they're open to the public. So people from recovery can, get on there. They don't have to be an alumni of Lakeview. And so we're doing those, support groups is what I like to call them. And then we're also doing, telephonic check-ins too. So we call alumni. We're calling them a little more frequently than we would usually to give them that added support. And then through our Facebook group, we have a huge following in a secret Facebook group that are only alumni, and it's a secret group, so you can't search for it. You can't add anyone else to it. It doesn't come up in anyone else's timeline or anything like that. So we're trying to get on there more and share, different articles, different maybe local meetings, different, intergroups around the country, things like that to get people connected wherever they are. That's what we're doing.
We have a client that the other day during one of our groups, he was sharing about going to a meeting in Israel, and I was very intrigued by that. And he kind of explained that he found a way through intergroup that he could attend these Zooms meetings with other states, countries, places on the planet that are having meetings together, and he's then disseminated that information, and we've been spreading that information to a lot of our current clients and alumni to get them to kind of expand their area of for Zoom specifically, or any of these kinds of forums, to see that other people in the world actually share the same kinds of struggles and have very similar stories. And he talked about the idea that he was listening to someone share their story, and the feelings that he had with regard to how he treated his family were the same ones that he had, but he lived in Israel or he lived in Australia. But they're all together in this forum, being able to see people from all over the world. And it kind of just expands your understanding of how far and wide addiction does reach, and how many people are working, in conjunction to make their lives better and find peace and find hope. So spreading that information to our alumni and our current clients to get them to kind of get out of themselves and do something as scary as that may seem, but to join a group with people from across the world is pretty cool.
With that being said, we have another question. Do you guys see a continuation of virtual meetings continuing on after this is finished?
Absolutely. I think that this has opened up a world for a lot of people to do, as I just said, to reach out beyond the small sphere that they're in. Also, if newly recovered people have families and they can't get out of the house, but they can sit at their house and attend a meeting. You know, if you think about through the years of doing this, a lot of the times people wind up relapsing because they stopped going to their meetings, they stopped doing certain things because life gets busy and it does fall down the priority list. And what happens is you get disconnected from that community group, and all of a sudden you find yourself doing things that you were doing before. So this kind of opens up the opportunities for people to stay connected on a much bigger level, and still attend their meetings, even if they don't necessarily have the time to do so by leaving the house.
Yeah, I mean, I can follow up on that. Is that I have had an alumni who her name was Sarah, and she has a special needs daughter, and she's always was struggling to get to meetings and things like that, but she's so happy that the virtual world exists now because she had all that anxiety of like leaving her daughter, at home and going to the meeting, but she knows she had to get to the meeting, and but now that she can still be in the house, maybe in a room upstairs or something like that, but still be close by enough and get what she needs recovery wise, and still kind of be there at a moment's notice, and not have that anxiety the whole time in the meeting that, oh my gosh, I got to get home, I got to think about that. She can't enjoy the meeting, can't get into it, or she can't share about it because the whole time she's thinking about the struggles at home or a daughter that with special needs. So she's totally amazed by that. When I heard that story, I was just, it just really made me think that there's a lot of people like her, and there's so many more people out in the world out there that just they have anxiety for leaving the house because they got something going on. And not that they're always going to do that, but just a couple meetings a week, if they did a couple fill-ins like that, man, what a great opportunity it is for everybody. So yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and I would go ahead.
I was going to say maybe Matt could speak to this more, but we had an alumni who moved away, and I think either next week or the week after, she's actually going to be sharing her story, and she doesn't live anywhere near here, but she's got an amazing story that's awesome to be told, and it'd be great for young women to hear it because she's come such a long way from when she left Florida. And I had a chance to talk to her because she's talking with Matt about doing the speaking gig, and I haven't seen her in a couple of years. So we're getting reconnected to people that kind of have moved away, and then they're sharing their stories with the current clients and the alumni that are still local. And again, it just expands their sphere of how far the reaching addiction is, and how many people are actually gotten sober and done well and lived their life and enjoying themselves.
I think also, with us, Chris, us finding more and more alumni throughout the country that have left us, or maybe they're even still local, it constantly reminds me of the work that we do works. And the fact that people feel safe enough years later to still jump on in a virtual room with people they don't know and talk about what's going on. I'm sure Lakeview has the same experience with their alumni, and it's just a refreshing piece for us internally in what we do. And Chris, I know exactly who you're talking about. She is life around. She is an amazing woman, and this has reminded us that those people are here, and that this is why we do the work. So for me, it's been an internal reflection.
Yeah, another thing too is that, I was just in a group before I came in on here, and we had someone in the group that just said, I just don't feel comfortable going to meetings, and I just suggested that you don't have to put your video camera on or your mic on, and you can just sit and listen, and if that's all you do is just sit there and listen for an hour, and she's like, I could do that. I could listen, you don't have to have on video, you don't have to have the microphone on, but just give it a try for, give it a couple of weeks of just listening to people's stories and people's shares. And, she kind of like agreed that that's a possibility. Now, the people that don't want to go because there's the fear, I think that's help with that in that regard too.
Well, it's funny you say that, Tony, because I literally had that same conversation in a group that I was running just before this. And they told him something that stuck with me for when I first heard it. It's Winston Churchill. He said, courage is the ability to stand up and speak, but it's also the ability to sit down and listen. And it really encouraged the person I was speaking to that they weren't like strange or different or disconnected just because they wanted to listen. And sometimes it does take courage just to listen.
So Crystal has a question. She asks, have you found it hard for patients when they get out and aren't able to find any entry-level jobs right now due to the stay-at-home orders? How are you keeping patients busy in the aftercare setting?
So I can add something to that. For our female clients, before this began, we kind of partnered with an organization, and what these women do is they help women in early recovery that are in transitional housing come and they bring them in and they work for them, and their goal is to help them build a resume, prevent to close those employment gaps, and also they foster culture of recovery, so these women are bonding together and they can talk about things in a female environment. Some of the other things that I can tell you that Rico's done with that is we are aware of what's going on, and we're doing our ability to keep everyone in our program. We've set up a separate home to kind of give them a place to go to, so because they can't go to a halfway house, or maybe they don't have the finances to do that, and they can't go home. We're keeping people because it's the right thing to do for us. It's just what Rico is about, doing what's right. And because if we're putting somebody out there in the world to just go after all this, we're not setting them up for success. And it's just an amazing piece of what we're doing. And my belief from the alumni, by doing that, these folks are going to continue to invest their time into the alumni and grow the alumni, and they're going to pay that back with our current youth. And they're going to be involved.
And the other reality to this is that there actually are quite a few entry-level jobs out there. It actually just takes some guidance, right? So there's been a lot of guidance that we've been given to people, and we've had individuals get jobs at Walgreens. We've had people get jobs at things like Publix or Costco, and some of these big chains that are actually still open and still operating at high levels. And so there are jobs out there. It certainly takes a little bit more effort and a little bit more of a desire to go to work, but it's available if people are looking for it. Plus, people are utilizing the resources, the social resources that are available when it comes to food, whether it's food pantries or if they got laid off from their job, helping them navigate unemployment, helping them navigate the stimulus and what to do with it, how to spend it, how to save it. But we're trying to utilize every resource available to help them keep moving forward in their life. I have one client that's continuing to attend groups. She lives at a halfway house. And she said, I was able to file for unemployment. I was able to get the unemployment. And so the time that I'm spending now is solely focused on my recovery. Right now, it's not like I can go out in big places. So I'm joining Zoom groups. I'm working with a sponsor. I'm doing like actual work by reading and writing and my steps. And she's spending this time just focusing on her recovery. And it's interesting because if this wasn't happening, a lot of that wouldn't be happening, right? They'd be out working, they've been getting involved, they'd be making lots of friends and going to places. And sometimes the recovery work takes you somewhat isolating to kind of get through it. And now it's kind of like, well, you don't have a choice but to do some of that anyway. So if I'm doing it, I might as well do the work that goes along with it.
Okay, Jeffrey asks, what extra steps are staff taking to help clients find sponsors and home groups during this time?
So this is always one of my favorite things, pre-pandemic was helping patients get sponsors and walking them through that. And, we have people from 12-step communities bring in meetings usually before this. And so, I was kind of a little more strict or harsh, if you will, and I would suggest patients learn how to walk up to someone and ask them to be their sponsor. Because that's what I had to do. That's what my sponsor had to do. I didn't have someone that wrote someone's name on a piece of paper. So that's what we suggest our patients to do. However, now that they don't get any exposure while they're in treatment to 12-step meetings, we walk them, or we do hand them a piece of paper with it on there. And that is just something that me and my team do. We find people, we vet people in the community, and we hook them up. We say, hey, luckily our team's in recovery, and we have, 4 of us that know people in the community. So that's what we do.
Haley, one of the things that we've done is where most places have stopped doing H&I, our alumni has made it clear that they still wanted to figure a way out to do this. So we are still doing alumni. We do it every night at 7 p.m. and we do it also Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And what's the crazy thing about this is, or the gift of this is that I'm booked out through May. People coming in and doing H&I commitments. And so we're encouraging our current clients to meet them. Something else we've created a while ago at Rico is, I don't know if you can see these real well, but they say support's just around the corner. And inside of these, men for men, women for women, are approved AA meeting lists. And on the back of it is a phone list. So we fill these out in our alumni at Thursday night when we do our alumni meetings with alumni. So we have a plethora of these already filled out, giving them to current clients when they come into Rico, along with their buddy number, so they can start making these calls and facilitate introductions virtually or sometimes. And it's about taking action, becoming vulnerable, and stepping out as best as they can right in relationships.
And I want to jump on that too, is that, I put on 2 meetings a week. It's a Wednesday night and Thursday night. And I'm fortunate enough to be in this area to have a large, network of men in different what's upstream we have and things like that. And I just put on there, if anybody would be interested in being a temporary sponsor. And I got so much feedback from these men in the area and I made a list of names and numbers. And so after the meeting at 7 to 8, I've had guys come into my office and call right there on the spot. And, and offer, if there's a temporary sponsor and they pick a name off the list and they call it Ben and they give him his number and all of a sudden they have a temporary sponsor. And I try to do that as much as I can when they're willing. I offer it, the numbers to guys and they come up to me afterwards and say, I want to use one of those numbers. I'm right in the office. We dial the number and they say, ask for the sponsor right there on the spot. And we go, I've always felt that one of the biggest things hurdle that I had to get over was, because I had been to a couple of different treatment centers, was the only one I went to that actually got a temporary sponsor myself is the one I went to was here 4 years ago. And I went and I got a temporary sponsor and I went in that office and I picked up the phone. I called him on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock and I got a temporary sponsor. And then it, just like Lexi said, it was a lot easier to walk into a room in Orlando and walk up to a guy and say, can you be my sponsor? Because I'd already done it once, and that was only about a week before that. So, repetition is one of the biggest things we need to promote because it becomes easier every time you do it. So, yeah, it's whatever it takes. And if they're willing, if they, I give them the list, and if they want to call, they can do it right there that night.
You guys are so awesome. Brandon asks, what additional tools have you found to be helpful for alumni to use to help them deal with difficult family situations during this pandemic?
This is a very, very good question. And I think dealing with families is something that is usually one of the biggest barriers for people in a pandemic or not. Because unfortunately families, no matter if we're getting better or not, that might not change if family gets better or not, and so I know I've helped and talked with a couple different alumni, and we've had a couple different of our virtual meetings, kind of talk about this and how do you deal with, maybe your unhealthy family or your difficult family now that you're stuck in a house with them. And I think just, some of the basics that we're already teaching people, like finding healthy, coping mechanisms or exercises or healthy hobbies to do that you can do at home, whether it's, you set up a little meditation room or you set up, a little studio where you can draw or write or, go on walks, things like that. Finding healthy ways to kind of remove yourself from whatever situation is going on, at that time, and then continuing to reach out to people. Just because we can't leave and go to a meeting does not mean we can't pick up the phone and call someone and just talk about it. Just talk about what's going on. Call your alumni coordinators, call other people in the program, and just see if they have suggestions on how to deal with it.
I've participated in a lot of family calls over the last, 6 to 8 weeks. And, truth be told, there have been a number of clients who have, used the pandemic to convince their family that they want to go home and they need to go home because, Florida is not a good place for the pandemic kind of thing. And after we have gone over the measures that we have taken to keep people safe during this time, the families have a better understanding of what's actually happening. So it's just being and having an honest phone call with the family members and the client too, and being honest with them. It's like, are you using this as a opportunity to manipulate your parents to let them have them let you come home? And so that's been a big thing for us in a lot of our group therapy sessions. The therapists are really kind of plugging in on the honesty part of it. And, when they have more time to think to themselves because of the isolation, it's a great opportunity for them to find out whether or not they're actually being honest with regard to how they're thinking about themselves and their families and recovery and what's happening. And we've seen a lot of growth with our current clients, which will lead to, obviously great alumni. So we've really kind of honed in on that and had those conversations, open conversations with family, with clients, to kind of get them to next level understanding of how their minds operate with regard to, difficult situations or opportunities that can get them out of the current situation that they're in.
Chris, do you feel like you're seeing higher relapse rate with all the social isolation?
So it's a interesting question. What we've been doing is kind of since the beginning, assessing like our current cultural climate in the beginning of the pandemic, as we've moved through the pandemic and as we're getting to the end of the pandemic. What we noticed is that in the beginning, there was a lot of people who felt like it wasn't what it was and that they didn't really trust or believe. So as soon as you put the orders in that they have to be on lockdown or, isolated or, can't be out walking or restaurants are closed and whatnot, there was a lot of pushback and a lot of response that they didn't want to pay attention to it. And we saw some people that were relapsing or leaving or doing things like that. And then all of a sudden, as the news continued to trickle out about how, bad it was and how bad certain areas were in the country, a lot of people weren't too quick to get out and relapse and run away because they were in a safe environment. They obviously didn't want to, get the virus. And we saw a lot of growth with a lot of the clients because they took the time to, really engage in the groups and really engage in their individual therapy, engage in the alumni meetings. But now as we're getting to almost like an end where the lockdowns are going to be open, we're seeing a lot of people kind of revert back to the same mentality they had in the beginning, which was, it's over, I don't have to, continue to do this kind of thing. It's obviously, to me, it seems like it's less than it was in the beginning, but it's just a shift in the way that they're looking at their current situation. And so, yes, there was a spike in relapses. I saw it level out and almost become non-existent, and I'm starting to see a little bit of a trend move in that direction. And I think it's just going to be important for us as people in the field to just keep our eyes out to see the trends so that we can get in front of it and really address some of the emotions that are going to be coming up as things begin to open up. As soon as there's, as soon as restaurants open or places open or whatever, people are, well, I got to leave, I got to get a job, I have to do this, I have to do that. And yes, some of that is true, but everything should be done with some measure, and they need to be careful and cautious and not think now that they've had 6 weeks or 8 weeks locked in a house they can take on the world. It's still the same as it was when they first got here. It's still the same as it was when the pandemic first started. So we have to just kind of keep people measured and keep them looking at things reasonably and not allowing that newfound freedom to take over and send them down paths that that don't produce good outcomes.
Yeah, and I agree with everything Chris said. I think that at the beginning, people were so worried about, the virus itself that, that wasn't the main focus, but from our experience, the people that have, recently been in treatment during this or, just finished treatment when all of this started, those people have been doing well. But the relapses we have seen from alumni are people that, were in either earlier sobriety or people that had stopped, kind of using the tools. And so now they're just stuck at home and in some states can't get to their liquor store, or maybe their dope boys aren't working anymore or whatever. And, now they're in this reality of they need help, and it got, a lot worse a lot quicker, and they don't have, those rooms to go to or that clubhouse to go to or whatever. And so we saw a little bit of an increase, but I think it was people that had kind of stopped working a program or stopped working recovery a while ago. But like I said, the people that, are getting sober through this, I think they're being prepared so well. And we have such great aftercare partners that are supporting them so well that those people are staying sober, which is huge. Because I don't know how I would have done it. This is how life was in my early recovery. So I think that itself can attest to, the providers in the treatment industry that are taking this so seriously and that preparing these, patients so well. And then places like Rico and, other places we work with, they are continuing to support them in this environment. It's a weird world for everyone, not just people trying to get sober.
That's right.
Crystal wants to know if you guys think that relapses coincide with people getting their stimulus check.
Well, let me just tell you. Well, let me just say that a couple of things that from experience, what I've heard, just in treatment here alone, when that week was coming out, when the stimulus was supposed to hit on a Wednesday or the week before when no one knew when it was coming, there was a lot of talk of stimulus check, when's it coming, and people were almost focused on it, almost where I brought up in a group, like, let's get this out and I'll talk about it out loud. Everybody anticipating what's going on with this money, and is it bothering you? And what's it making you feel? What's it making you feel like? And there was a lot of anticipation. There was a lot of angst and anxiety about it. And there were a couple of people who left. I'm not going to kid you that left. And I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't doubt it was because they left on a Monday, knowing that check was going to be direct deposited on a Wednesday, and they went out, because they just could not get it out of their mind. God willing, they make it back or whatever. But I think that was definitely something that's we're going to see maybe a little bit of when people come in now, we'll be able to talk to them and say, yeah, I'll hear. I won't doubt that I hear the stories of, well, I got that stimulus check, and and I've been out for the last couple weeks or even a month now, and now I'm ready to come back in, or now I got to go back to work, and I'm such in the grips of addiction right now, I can't go outside, I can't go back to work. And we hope that that's not the case, but something tells me, as you know, as an addict myself, that that's going to be, we're going to hear that about coming in here. That you know, I can't go to work now because I'm just, my addiction's got me, and you know, my job's ready to start me back, and I can't. You know, and I hope that doesn't happen, but I have a feeling we're going to see something like that. So.
You're
You're on
muted,
mute,
Matt.
Matt.
We had that happen the other day. A couple people left a place, got their check, and they made it about 12 hours and the money was gone and they caught screaming help. You know what so again, to me, that's why those phone calls, the social media, virtual meetings and everything are crucial. I don't think we can stop those things from happening, but we can definitely be there. And that outreach is very crucial in making sure that happens. I would have been that guy in early recovery that would have used, well, I probably wouldn't have got the $1,200, but I would have used money as an excuse to go have fun for a night. And but hopefully we're catching those situations when they happen and help these people get their lives back on track.
Okay, we have another question. Excuse me if I pronounce your name wrong. It's Rhea or Ray. They want to know, have you noticed any type of uptick in replacement addictions, such as overeating, relationships, shopping, due to the isolation, and how are you handling those?
I would say yes. Like, even personally, I can't stop shopping online. And it's becoming a serious problem where I'm about to give my card to my boyfriend because it's just like, it's that same, addict brain where it's like, okay, I can't, the obsession has been removed, but so have my meetings, so is my support system, so has, going to a restaurant or whatever. And so now I'm just like, oh, I'm going to buy stuff, and that's something that we're talking to people about while they're in treatment. It's something that we've talked about it on our virtual meetings. And definitely, I mean, that's such a great question because even, the overeating, you're bored, maybe you were going to a gym before all this hit, but now you're just stuck in your house and your gyms are closed and you don't feel like working out at home or feel like running around in the hot Florida sun. And so, yeah, I think that it's very real that people are trading one addiction out for the other. And I think it's important for us as, leaders of meetings or leaders of group chats or phone calls, whatever, to make people aware of those things popping up and how to handle them as they come up and not let them snowball into something more serious where, it's something that you're ruining your life or damaging things or relationships over. And so just kind of us being vigilant about that, I think, is really important too.
Yeah, Lexi, I think, the reality is that it happens pandemic or not. And I think, what we try to do is an honest approach and call things out when we see it. And so I think right now, because of the current situation, things seem a little bit more noticeable, but I think it's happening all the time. A lot of times people will get sober and stop the drugs and the alcohol, but the behavior just gets shifted to something else. And so, just like any other time, this time we have to call it out and we have to, help the individual to see it for themselves, because there are some of those replacements that would be deemed healthy in our society, but if they're doing it in an obsessive way, regardless if it's just going to the gym, if it's becoming an unhealthy obsession, it's something that needs to be addressed and talked about. And I think that, again, the meetings like this where we're online virtually is really, it's not different than someone sitting in front of us, and that we do need to just be honest and have those honest conversations and ask the important questions and dig a little bit because somebody might not be telling you that because you can't really see them face to face, but really struggling with it. If somebody's like sitting there just chowing down on food every 3 seconds, then maybe you could say something, but that's not something necessarily you're going to be able to see in a virtual setting. So we have to have those honest conversations and ask real questions to help the individual get to the place where they could be honest about it themselves.
Rhea also wants to know, as for your mental health or dual diagnosis patients, are they having a harder time during this pandemic? And what are some solutions for them as well?
I'll be honest, I think that it's on some level made things a little bit easier because, when you're dealing with some mental health issues and when you're out in the world, there's so many different triggers and things that can set off somebody spiraling out of control. But being more in a kind of like a controlled environment on some level allows for more of that, work to take place where they're not having all of these external things maybe set them off. And so working with individuals, making sure they're taking their medications, questioning them about that, asking them what kind of thoughts they're having, whether they're struggling through any kind of depression and what's triggering that depression or anxiety. It seems to be a little bit easier to deal with that than if they were, kind of out and about in the world and doing their thing and then maybe not reporting what they went through during the day. We have a kind of like a more of a connection with them more time than we would otherwise.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I think that not only has this given people more resources and more ways to reach out and to deal with this, and to force people to work on this stuff because you can't just go and, um, run from it basically. And, they're stuck with yourself and the isolation. And so how do you deal with it? How do you get through that? And I think it's also given them other people that are saying, yeah, I'm going through this too. And we're, not only us in the treatment industry, but everyone and their mothers coming up with different ways and different apps and different vlogs and different, all these things that say if you're struggling with, depression or anxiety, we can help or whatever. So you're just scrolling through Facebook and you see, a little ad for a virtual therapist, or whatever. So I think society as itself was pretty quick to hop on this. We got to help these people too. How are we going to do it? And so I think that people that struggle with those things are finding other people more quickly that are struggling with the same thing. And so I think, that's kind of one of the positive things that have came out of this. And I think we've also touched on some of the other positive things that have came out on this too. Like those people, those families, or those individuals that they just genuinely cannot get to meetings. And it's not because they don't want to or because they're unwilling. It's because they have that special needs daughter, or they lost their license and they can't drive and there's no meetings around them, or they, have 3 kids at home, or whatever the situation is. Now they have resources right at their fingertips, and so I think that, even for me personally, it's like life got really busy before this and life was getting really good, and I have this great job and I have this great, home life and doing all these things, and it's like the program kind of gets pushed further and further down the list. And so when the pandemic hit, I was like, oh, I can just go to meetings from home, or, hey, teammates, let's make all these virtual meetings. Let's bring in meetings ourselves to these patients. And so I personally got more involved than I had been in the last year. And so I think that as much negative has came out of this and has much struggle that people in recovery have had, I think there's also been, the same amount, if not more, people that have gotten stronger through this, that have gotten reconnected more, that have found other ways, maybe that work for them better to stay sober, and maybe ways that they wouldn't have stayed sober if isolation never happened. So that's my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, Lexi, I want to jump on that real quick. I've had an amazing experience with some people with regard to them being able to focus on what they're passionate about, right? So I've actually had a number of groups where we have these people that are amazing writers, and they write short stories or they write poems, and then they share them on in these online forums in these virtual groups that we're having. And because they've been having to stay inside, they're spending more time on the thing that they're most passionate about and then being able to immediately share it. A lot of times in treatment and normal circumstances, we would hear that somebody's a great writer. And then if you've asked them to maybe read something they wrote, they're a little bit more shy because they're sitting around a bunch of people. And so they're not necessarily willing to do it. In this type of forum, they've been more willing to do it. I've had other clients that love reading, and so they've taken this time to dive into books that they've always wanted to read, and not just, like some deep books, and then bring with them a discussion based on what some maybe they learned in the book to the group and share it and talk about it. So I think it's given opportunity for people to dive into what's really important to them and what they really love and what they're passionate about, and then share it, not just keeping it to themselves, but to share it to other people. And you could see their eyes light up. You could see them get excited. You could see them, the inflection in their voice change when they have the opportunity to share those things. So I think that's a great thing that has come out of it.
Yeah, and one thing I want to jump in on is that, you have the people that are still, one good thing about alumni virtual meetings is that, they're so familiar, and everybody likes, or at least they've had experience with everybody, so they feel very comfortable. So if when you have the people that are, here at dual diagnosed, and maybe you don't bring that out into a 12-step program, tell them about your issues. You wouldn't say that in those type of meetings, but you feel comfortable saying those things in this type of meeting because you've been talking about it for a month with these people. And they know all about you. They know what meds you're on. They know what's going on. You've talked about it. You've sat around the picnic table and you've discussed it already. So now it's okay to say it, but you maybe will not. That's the difference between that I like about alumni virtual meetings, because that's more comfortable, and you're not going to say those things in a 12-step program meeting, or at least you don't. When I heard people start talking like that, I'm like, oh geez, here we go. And but it's like, what, but here you feel more comfortable doing that, and then and that's what's so great about that, and that's what I try to encourage people. It's like, look, these people, they're going to be the same people that are going to be in these meetings. Just come on in. And that way they can tell you, they're doing it together. It's kind of like you grew up together, you're doing it together. You kind of like set the bar, like we got 30 days together, we got 40 days together. We're kind of like just, you're in this together, and that's what's kind of like the atmosphere that you have in these meetings. Whereas, a 12-step meeting or something like that, which are necessary, but this is more like family in here.
Matt, can you, just to kind of wrap up, can you share with us what a typical RICO virtual support group would look like?
So, the group, for example, I'll use the group we did last night. Everyone comes in and we just go around and everyone does a quick check-in. And just I look for like a common denominator to kick it off with. If the conversation's a lot based on fear or struggling or the word relapse, I look for a keyword, and then I try to align with said keyword and start my experience with that and when I've done it, and then ask people how that relates to them. And then the group just takes over. Like in the groups, what I'm seeing is like that group on Thursday night, it's pretty much the same people all the time. So they have a virtual community of accountability. And it was just, I was talking to our primary therapist that usually handles it at that group, and she's like, watch what they do and how they hold each other accountable. And for a minute, like when somebody would say something to another on the group, I was like, how am I going to shut this down? And like, it was so well received. And so you feel that virtually through that screen, and that the care is there, the accountability is there, and that they want to get better, and they're more vulnerable. they're actually talking about real things that have happened or real things that are going on, because I think they feel even safer. And I'm blown away by it. And my takeaway on that is I've had the ability to really look at myself and align with it and self-reflect on what my life is doing. And it's just, we've taken the most horrific thing I think could happen to any of us, and then you tear it apart. You look at the most vulnerable group, and our clients, our alumni, addicts and alcoholics, we are so vulnerable in something like this. And I'm really blown away to see what Lakeview has done, what Rico has done, and what people in AA, NA, fellowships have done, and communities have done to protect each other and move forward with this. And that's the silver line, that it's made Lakeview, Rico, and all these other great organizations stop what they're doing and look at how do we support people that we normally support and do the best at it. And it comes, you see the reward in those groups, in those virtual rooms, you absolutely see it. And I tell you, it's been beautiful. And we're such fortunate people that we get to help facilitate that.
And then one last question, are these virtual groups and meetings that you guys are holding, are they only available for alumni or someone who's been through treatment, or are they open to everybody?
We have both. We have some that are just for alumni, and we'll show that with our alumni through calls or through email, through text, and through Facebook. But right now, the majority of the ones we're doing are for the public. We kind of just wanted to be a platform. We were already doing these virtual meetings before the pandemic hit, and so we had the technology for it. So we were like, let's just open it up, and anyone that needs one. And this was kind of before 12 steps went virtual. So we were just like, hey, we're there. If you need to just get on and talk, we're there. So we do both.
We have groups for people who are still in outpatient. We're doing virtual groups for people who are in IOP. We have a group for people who are just alumni, but I don't believe we've particularly opened it up to the public. But if one of our alumni has a sponsor that's maybe even speaking for the alumni meeting, or a friend or a family member, we've done some virtual coins kind of thing, to celebrate lengths of time. So family members have been a part of it. And so we kind of gauge based on who maybe is receiving a coin, who's speaking, how far we open it up to.
Okay, well, I think that concludes everything. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions, and thank you to the panel for coming. If you guys have anything else that you want to say, I'll let you say your goodbyes.
Thank you so much to everyone that came. Thank you, Haley. You did a wonderful job moderating. And Tony, Matt, and Chris, you guys did great too. This is going to be recorded, and so we'll put it out on some kind of flat platform. I'm not sure what, but if any of the attendees have any questions, you guys know how to reach out to us.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Glad we could be
here.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Bye,
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.